Hey YouTube, this is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we are talking rookie wide receivers for this upcoming season. Now that the draft is over, we know where these players have landed. Now we are going to rank them as far as where we believe they should be in your rookie drafts. And we're not talking obviously Dynasty full rankings. We obviously will be coming out at that later of where some of these players could possibly move up, especially with already established elite receivers in the league. Some of these guys could easily move up in the top 10 in Dynasty. So we're just, again, talking straight wide receivers here. There may be some surprises. There may be some that are absolute obviouses. And that's okay. If you guys haven't already, check out some gems that we found in a lot of rookie drafts that we're finding in the late second to third round that you may be able to get in your rookie draft that will absolutely be some dominance for you this season. And of course, some nice taxi players you may want to hold on to that will have some value going forward. So again, make sure you guys check out that video. So we're going to start this off really simple. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the number one wide receiver, right? Like, I think that's the consensus. There's really no reason to get fancy. I'm not trying to do clickbait. Like, it is a very clear cut and dry. He is the wide receiver one. Look, in the last 2 years, back to back, he had over 1,200 receiving yards, 28 touchdowns in those 2 seasons. Very athletic body, great hands, nice big size, and landed in a particular spot where I think everyone wanted him to. Like, Arizona was the clear cut spot that everyone felt really good about, especially, again, coming in as the clear-cut wide receiver one, having an established quarterback in Kyler Murray, who has dealt with injuries, but he is there and he is a good quarterback that can get the ball down the field. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is the clear-cut wide receiver one. There is not a whole lot we need to discuss. Now, my number 2, I think most people will probably agree, is Malik Nabers. Now, I know the landing spot for Malik Nabers has some people worried. I get it. Landing on a Giants team that, let's be honest, Daniel Jones is not the answer at the quarterback position, and nobody's really worried about this season as far as how Daniel Jones is going to get the ball to Malik Nabers. Now, I'm still a big believer in Malik Nabers. He should easily be in your top 5 when it comes to your rookie drafts. I've seen him fall slightly outside of that. He's still a first-round player, and I've even seen people go Rome and Dunze before Malik Nabers, which I get because of, again, everyone's worried about Daniel Jones, but I have some things we'll talk about with the Dunze. Look, Malik Nabers, 4.40, 98th percentile in burst score. Again, amazing talent, had over 1,500 yards last season, 14 touchdowns, and he is, I think, the 1B to Harrison Jr. as far as this draft goes. So for me, that's an easy number 2 when it comes to this rookie ranking class because, again, I don't care about the landing spot. You may have to suffer for a year and Daniel Jones is out. Maybe we'll see things change. Or there could be a surprise. Daniel Jones might actually surprise people, force feed Nabers, and Nabers becomes a top 12 to 15 wide receiver into this season. Now, my number 3, I've got Rome and Dunze. Now, I mentioned him as a player that has been able to kind of squeak just beyond, the 105, 104 spot in some cases. Now, again, we're talking super flex. If we're talking one quarterback, it might even be a little bit of a different spot there. But Dunze is a great talent. Great size, 6'3", ran a 4.4 40. Again, one of the most elite talents, just like Nabers, had over 1,500 yards. He had 13 touchdowns. Absolutely dominated in Washington. Now, my only concern when it comes to Dunze is the fact that the landing spot is you're going to have to suffer for a year or so. Look, Caleb Williams being tied to him is a great situation, right? That's your quarterback for the next 5 years, unless something crazy happens. Dunze will have DJ Moore, and I do expect DJ Moore to be there for a long-term situation. I don't think he's going to be there, for just a couple more years, and that's it. I think DJ Moore will be there for a while. So those will be the top 2 receivers in this team. But this year, you do have to deal with Keenan Allen. And let's be honest, Keenan Allen is a great wide receiver, great route runner. The only concern is obviously up there in age, and then, of course, his injury issues. If he stays healthy, he is going to keep Dunze at the wide receiver 3 spot. And again, not a lot of expectations. Now, if we were talking redraft, I wouldn't have Dunze in this near the top at all because of the landing spot, because I do believe he is going to have to kind of deal with some of that this first year. Obviously, going forward, Dunze has great dynasty value, and he's definitely somebody you should be grabbing, which is why I have him at wide receiver 3. Now, I'm a wide receiver 4. I'm really high on him. I know some people are kind of worried because of the situation. And what I mean by that is Keon Coleman is my wide receiver 4. Look, I would have loved to have seen a better combine result out of him. There were games I wish he had really shown up. He had 11 touchdowns last season, and transferring from Michigan State, going to Florida State, there were some high expectations. He didn't quite live up to the expectations that everyone had hoped to, right? He didn't break 1,000 yards. He didn't have that dominant season besides the 11 touchdowns, but great hands, great body control. He can body you in the red zone. He can get up and get the ball at the highest point, and he uses his body really well. But the concerns are he's had a 4.6 140. He didn't look great at all when it came to the gauntlet. And what I mean by that is he made his catches, but he didn't wow people, even though he did it really well. I will give him credit. But being the outside receiver in this Bills offense is where I have some concern. He's not great off the line. He isn't obviously the biggest separator. He does have to work on his route tree. But I think there's a lot of things that are coachable, which is why I still have him at my number 4 spot, because I think his talent is there. I think he is fat. He plays faster than his combine results show. Great hands. And again, lands in a situation where he should be the wide receiver 1 for Josh Allen. And I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities to show off and show up really well this season. So he is my wide receiver 4 when it comes to this rankings. Number 5, I got Brian Thomas Jr. Again, another LSU guy. Look, landing spot, I think was a great spot. I think he could have gone to some other places. I think he would have been higher had he gone to Buffalo, had he gone to Kansas City, something like that, just because of the quarterback play. Obviously, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are better than Trevor Lawrence, but he's still landed in a good spot with Trevor Lawrence. I know there's a lot of people who aren't on the Trevor Lawrence bandwagon, which I totally get, but he's going to get opportunities. Rightfully so, Christian Kirk is the wide receiver 1. They still have Evan Ingram, which is a big deal. They just let go of Zay Jones, which does show that they have confidence in Brian Thomas Jr. to have an effect this season. Brian Thomas Jr. came off an amazing season. He had 17 touchdowns, 1,100 receiving yards, and that was opposite of Neighbors, who got a lot of attention as well. So I think this is a really good spot for him. He's very athletic. He's 6'3", ran a 4.33 40. Again, great route runner, great hands. This is a perfect spot for Brian Thomas. What I think is interesting is in a few of my rookie drafts, I've seen him late second. I've even seen Brian Thomas Jr. fall in a 3rd round. I mean, there's no reason a guy like that who went in the 1st round, as far as the 1st round talent, should have gone anywhere outside of the 1st round in most rookie drafts. But I've seen it happen quite often. I think he's a nice little steal if you get him in the 2nd or 3rd round in your rookie drafts. Again, him falling in the 3rd is not very often, but I have seen it. So again, Brian Thomas is my number 5 wide receiver. At number 6, Xavier Worthy. Look, the landing spot actually ended up being a perfect spot for him. Obviously, he broke the 40-yard dash at the combine at 4.21. Speed kills. And let's be honest, a lot of people try to use this whole he's the Tyreek Hill as far as coming into the Kansas City offense. I don't expect him to be a Tyreek Hill. I don't want him to have that pressure of being a Tyreek Hill. I want him to be Xavier Worthy. And where he lands is a great spot because you got Patrick Mahomes. Great coaching staff is going to help him out. You got Travis Kelce, who's going to take a lot off the shoulder of this offense. Now, there's legal issues with Rashee Rice. We don't know what's going to happen, especially with some of the latest news that just broke recently. Then you've got a 1-year rental, essentially, of Hollywood Brown. So Xavier Worthy definitely landed in a great spot where his value can go even higher. I have him at 6. Could have put him at 5 or 4, but I think there's some concerns. His weight, I want to see him get a little bit heavier, especially be able to take some of these hits in the NFL. I would love to see him in the 180 to 185 range. He's a little light, in the tush, but that speed, his route running, I think he's got a great potential. And I think if this coaching staff really gets to him early and often in this mini camp and training camp and offseason, I think this is going to be a great season for him. At number 7, I got Ladd McConkey going to the Chargers. Look, the Chargers obviously needed wide receiver help. McConkey dealt with some injuries, in the 2023, so he didn't really show up as far as being able to show off what he was able to do. McConkey was the clear-cut wide receiver 2 behind a Brock Bowers who saw plenty of opportunities, right? He was the Robin to Brock Bowers' Batman. But McConkey had great plays. Again, very quick receiver, 4.39 40. He's a great route runner, great hands, showed off really well in the Senior Bowl. So the ability is there. I do think the reason why I have him a little lower, even though he's landed in a good spot, is the fact that I think the Chargers are going to be a run-heavy team with Harbaugh now at the head coaching spot. I think they're going to kind of lessen that really pressure and putting a lot on Justin Herbert. And I do think they still want to get a better wide receiver for this offense. So is McConkey a Band-Aid? It's possible. I don't think they're going to necessarily keep him as a Band-Aid. I think he'll still be, used, even if, say, they get a premier wide receiver next season. I still think McConkey's going to have a lot of value, which is why I still think he's worth drafting. I'm just not getting him in my first round. Maybe mid to second round, I would go after him because I think he does have some value even this season. But I'm not going to have high expectations just because I think this offense is going to be run first. I think, obviously, I actually love Rice that they ended up getting to. I still like Quentin Johnston. I know a lot of people gave up on him already in a year, and I understand why. You got Josh Palmer. I mean, there's still some good receivers on this team. So there's not a clear cut for him. So I have him at 7 because his talent is there. I think the opportunities will continue to get better. Number 8, I've got Xavier Legette. Legette obviously becoming a first rounder was kind of shocking with Carolina trading back in just to try to get that 5th-year option if he does turn out to be the receiver that they're hoping. He was great at South Carolina, and then he gets to stay in the Carolinas, which is great. I think where, for me, Bryce Young is still a question mark. I still think Bryce Young can be a quarterback in this league. I think last year was just kind of a fluke. I think that offense was not at all built for his skill set. They didn't get a lot of receivers around him. This year, they actually have weapons for Bryce Young, so I do have belief in him. So Legette does land in a good situation. Ran a 4.39 40, right? He had a dominant season with over 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns. And he, I think the biggest concern, he just didn't lack a huge impression in South Carolina early on in his college career, which I had hoped. I think a lot of people felt that way. He really had one good dominant season. So there are some concerns there. But body size is great, good hands, makes big plays, great speed. We'll see how this offense plays, but I think Legette definitely has some value. And that draft capital matters. At number 9, I've got Malachi Corley. Look, Corley lands in a great spot for the Jets. He's going to be somebody that they're going to use to have great advantages over mismatches. Putting him in the slot, moving him around quite a bit, going against safeties, going against linebackers. And I think that's where his value is going to be. Look, Corley is somebody that I think could be a steal. I think I'm seeing him fall. Again, he was in my gem, unlocking the gems in the draft. He was definitely somebody that you're falling into the 3rd round that I think can have great value even this season. We'll talk redraft later in this summertime because obviously that's not the focus right now. But I still think he's got some redraft value. He's had over 100 receptions in 2022. Could have had over 100 receptions in 2023 if he had not had some injuries. So he's got the ability to take a lot of targets. He's got the ability to make some big plays. Again, his size isn't great. I think he's like 5'11", so he's not the biggest guy, but that's okay. You got Garrett Wilson on the outside. Corley definitely can have some value. Again, being moved around, and as long as he gets that comfortability with Aaron Rodgers, gets that early on because Aaron Rodgers is very picky with his receivers. We all have seen that in the past. But if he gets that type of relationship, man, it's going to be a great season for him and the Jets. Number 10, Troy Franklin. I have seen too many times Troy Franklin falling in drafts. I don't know what it is. I think it's part of it is the fact that he also fell in the actual NFL draft. So I think some people are kind of seeing that as a concern, so they're kind of treating it the same way. Look, Troy Franklin is in a perfect situation for the Broncos. We're not sure what's going to happen with Sutton. Nothing's changed yet, but he is still the receiver there. They've got Bo Nix now, and so pairing up with his college quarterback is perfect for Troy Franklin. It's an easy way for him to feel comfortable, knows what Bo is looking for in matchups, reading defenses. I think that's an easy transition for him coming into the NFL. Talent-wise, he ran a 4.4 140. He's 6'2". I would love to see him gain a little bit more weight, but he had a great season. 1,300 receiving yards, 14 touchdowns. There's no reason that Troy Franklin should fall down. I think he's an absolute steal in a lot of drafts I'm seeing because of where he's falling. Because again, I think the draft capital was a concern. But I love Troy Franklin at my number 10 spot. Number 11, Ricky Pearsall. I'm sure like many others, I think a lot of people were kind of shocked by seeing them. 1, him being drafted in the 1st round. 2, being drafted by the 49ers. I think a lot of expectations were they drafted Pearsall, Ayuk or Debo's gone. But then things have changed. Right now, Lynch has pretty much said that they're going to keep Ayuk and Debo. They still got to figure out this contract situations because Ayuk's on his 5th year, but they're keeping them, which now completely changes the game for Pearsall. His rookie season pretty much now in the taxi squad at this point, unless a trade does actually happen. Pearsall also didn't really have a dominant college season. I mean, last year he was just under 1,000 yards, which was his best season yet. He was 4 years in. He's obviously full of highlights. Everyone remembers that one-handed catch between 3 defenders. But that's about it. Nothing really stands out for Pearsall that I felt he should have been a first round talent. I think there were other receivers that went after him that I thought were a better matchup and better player and better athlete. But Pearsall, I will give him credit. He can run routes. He does have great hands. And I think sometimes when you are considered the underdog, may show up really well in the NFL. We'll see. But I think you might have to wait a little bit longer, which is why I'm not crazy about him right now in my rankings. Because right now, you might have to wait 2 or 3 years before you might actually get some value out of that draft pick. And he's being drafted way too high in I think most rookie drafts that I've seen. Now, my number 12, A.D. Mitchell. Look, Mitchell is one of my favorite receivers coming in this draft class. Another receiver from Texas opposite of Xavier Worthy. Wasn't as fast as obviously Worthy, which nobody is. But Mitchell was a better route runner. Great big hands, good size. But my biggest concern for him is the fact that he landed in the Colts. Right now, you've got Michael Pittman Jr., who they signed an extension on. You got Josh Downs, a rookie, and he played really well. And now you've got A.D. Mitchell. I'm not even going to mention Alec Pierce because Alec Pierce, I think, is the odd man out in this whole situation. With that said, though, you've got Anthony Richardson, who was never really a huge volume thrower in college. I don't expect that in the NFL as well. They still got to work with him. He's got that shoulder injury he's coming off with, so that will be eased into this season. They're going to obviously use Jonathan Taylor, which is a big deal because Jonathan Taylor should be healthy. That offensive line should be better. So realistically, A.D. Mitchell has, again, like Pearsall, is now the third option in this team. The difference between, say, Mitchell and Pearsall and Odunze is now tied to a really good quarterback, I think, obviously better talent than Anthony Richardson. But you're also going to get into that second spot when Keenan Allen's probably gone. Mitchell still has to deal with Downs. Pearsall has to deal with Debo or Ayuk. Their situations aren't the same as far as Odunze goes. So the fact is, that's why they're lower on my rankings. Could I move them up had they landed in a better spot? Absolutely. Their talent's there. They have the ability to be a good, very good receiver, if not above average receiver in the NFL. But the landing spots play a factor, which is why I have them on my rankings at a lower spot. So, agree, disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. If you guys have questions for Dynasty, have trade questions, anything you guys have, I would love to help you guys out with those questions. Make sure you guys check out any of my other Dynasty content, whether it be rankings, whether it be how the first round should be in your draft. Again, unlocking your favorite gem in this rookie. Again, make sure you check those out. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and I'll check you guys out next time.